priorities. We saw the bank play a very proactive role in assisting our economies during the COVID-19 pandemic. On behalf of the Brics Business Council, I express sincere gratitude to NDB for providing loans to Brics countries under its emergency assistance facility towards fight against the COVID-19 outbreak, as well as for facilitating economic recovery. Friends, this year, our activities are focused on theme sustainable growth and development. Sustainable development is also the core of NDB operations. NDB has completed its first 5-year cycle. It has approved more than 70 projects worth nearly $29 billion across all Brics countries. On behalf of Brics business community, I'd like to congratulate you for the latest issue of $2.25 billion pandemic support and sustainable bonds. On the back of a solid international rating, the bank has been actively raising funds from international markets through various bond issues. We're hopeful that NDB shall continue to play a central role in facilitating developmental efforts of the Brics countries. Over the last few years, the bank has expanded its portfolio to include non-sovereign projects. With time, private sector lending should see a significant rise in the overall portfolio of NDB. The new private sector and non-sovereign transactions department will support this expansion. Brics Business Council will be happy to assist NDB through this new department. Mr. Ajo, let me share in brief some of the key activities of Brics Business Council and the valuable work various working groups have been doing in the area of sustainable development. Let me start with the Energy and Green Economy Working Group. This group, which focuses on low carbon technologies, has always laid impetus on sustainability and inclusiveness. The group has prepared a concept note on clean energy fund, which includes suggestions on the size, structure, and scope of such a fund. Clean energy has been a key focus of NDB operations, and I read that the bank has approved 15 clean energy projects during the last 5 years, many of which are focused on renewable energy. All our countries are working actively towards clean energy transition. Establishing an NDB Clean Energy Fund can serve a key enabler of this transaction. We'll be sharing the concept note with your office and request you if you can have it examined. Sir, we also hope NDB will serve as a catalyst in driving projects in the other priority areas such as infrastructure, agribusiness. In case of infrastructure sector, I would like to draw your attention to bankability and viability studies that are an essential requirement for infrastructure financing. NDB can support here through its project preparation facility that can work with the existing facility in Brics countries. We are happy to note the new development bank has recently expanded its infrastructure lending portfolio to include areas like digital infrastructure, especially in the non-sovereign category. The loan of $300 million to support cellular network and cloud service expansion in Russia is a welcome step. We look forward to more such non-sovereign loans in which Brics countries as well. I would like to share that India is currently in the process of setting up development financial institution called National Bank for Financing Infrastructure and Development, which is primarily aimed at funding large infrastructure projects. I'm sure the learning from NDB own experience can be extremely useful in successful operation of DFI being set up in India. We'd be happy to see greater engagement of this institution with NDB in the coming years. Over the years, the New Development Bank has also expanded its network by establishing regional offices in South Africa, Brazil, and Russia. We understand regional office in India is also under works this year. We are eagerly looking forward to this development. We believe a local presence of NDB in India would expand the scope of its engagement with the Indian businesses as well as create opportunities for expanding the project pipeline for NDB. An important part of NDB strategy has been to issue bonds in the local currency of the Brics member state to eliminate exchange rate risk. The bank has indeed issued multiple rounds of local currency bonds in China. We look forward to issuance of such bonds in other countries too. Would be happy to know the progress being made in this direction. With these words, sir, I now invite you to share your views, insight on the roads ahead for NDB and how it sees playing an even greater role in the supporting the growth and development in our countries. Thank you.
Marcos को please unmute.
Thank you very much, Mr. Anka Kanwar, for your kind words and for those valuable suggestions. I also wanted to greet Mr. Jackson Schneider, Mr. Sergey Katrin, Captain Zulu Orang, Ms. Buzi Mabuza, ladies and gentlemen joining us here today at the Brics Business Forum. It's truly a great honor to address you at this juncture. And let me, of course, start by commending the Indians Brics presidency and the important work of the Brics Business Council. The theme of this year's forum, Strengthening Brics Business Connect for Sustainable Growth and Development, is very much aligned with the work that we do here at the NDB. After all, we are a bank that finances infrastructure. We are a platform to connect businesses. We promote sustainable growth and development. And over this past 2 days, this forum has held 5 sessions, as I understand it, that are also intrinsically linked with what we do at the New Development Bank. Your session 1, for example, explored how digital technologies can be leveraged for better governance and higher growth. At the New Development Bank, we strive to embody those technology elements in the infrastructure we finance. This technology doesn't necessarily have to be state-of-the-art, yet it can make a true difference. We have so many examples. For example, unattended train operations technology in India that we're helping finance, the digitization of the judicial system in Russia, smart digital technology for water management in China, a virtual power plant for energy storage and smart grid technology in South Africa, the innovative road systems that's being implemented in Brazil. Well, your session 2 of the forum focused on the role of the financial sector in meeting Sustainable Development Goals, the so-called SDGs. We understand that meeting the Sustainable Development Agenda 2020 necessitates large-scale and long-term investment by countries in physical, social, and digital infrastructure. Therefore, we map the contributions of each of our investments to fulfilling the commitments by our own member countries under the 2030 Agenda. For example, we have renewable and clean energy generation capacity to be installed at 2,800 megawatts, which relates to SDG number 7. We have CO2 emissions to be avoided, which is SDG 13. We have roads to be built or upgraded, or bridges to be built or upgraded that relate to Sustainable Development Goal number 9. Drink water supply capacity to be increased is Sustainable Development Goal number 6. Urban rail transit networks to be built, or cities that will benefit from the New Development Bank's urban development projects, both are under Sustainable Development Goal number 11. Or schools that are being built or upgraded that are related to Sustainable Goal number 4. Your session 3 addressed the priorities for infrastructure development in this post-COVID-19 world. And we believe there will be a fundamental shift in the growth paradigms going forward. Large emerging economies such as those of the Brics will be at the driving seat to define what growth and development will mean in the years to come. Your session 4 touched upon the empowerment of women and women-led development. While the New Development Bank considers women empowerment and gender issues as important elements in project assessment. For example, the Emergency System Program against COVID-19 in Brazil contributed to women's economic development and gender equality by providing a double amount of aid to families headed by women. Session 5 of the forum is exploring PPPs for better health incomes. We understand that healthcare technologies and solutions are becoming increasingly important for the economic prosperity of our member countries. And the public and private sector alike have important roles to play in bridging the healthcare gap. The NDB has introduced social infrastructure, including the healthcare sector, as a key component in our next general strategy running from 2022 to 2026. The recent seminar on social infrastructure jointly organized by the New Development Bank and the Ministry of Finance of India contributed a great deal to better understanding this sector, in particular the use of digital technologies as value enhancers. The alignment of this year's Brics Business Forum with NDB work underscore the potential that we have for further collaborating with the business sector. Now, my friends, let me turn to the work that we've been doing here at NDB on a more specific basis. 6 years ago, when the bank came to existence, it was basically just a project. It was an idea. It was only a dream. Now, as it has been mentioned, we have more than 70 projects in all of our member countries, and our project approvals is nearing $30 billion. We are supporting, as I mentioned, strategic infrastructure projects, and we are addressing our country's core developmental needs. We are responding to the challenges of providing support as well to our members in facing up to the COVID-19 challenging. We are contributing to the achievement of the Sustainable Development Goals. Transport, urban development, irrigation, sanitation, clean energy, social infrastructure, and environmental efficiency are all within our scope. Going back to COVID-19, as it has been said many times, the pandemic represents a great challenge to the world economy. The NDB, as you know, has been rising to the occasion. We are a proactive and agile partner. $10 billion were committed as a support through the Emergency Assistance COVID-19 program, which had 2 phases. The first $5 billion directed more specifically to health-related issues, and the second $5 billion there to support economic recovery. I also wanted to report to you that we're making important progress in expanding the outreach of the New Development Bank. Late last year, we were given the green light by our shareholders to start formal negotiations to expand the membership of our institution. And these negotiations are going very well, and quite soon we'll be announcing new members of the NDB family. In this connection, as it has been mentioned by Mr. Kanwar, we realize that the outreach of the New Development Bank grows and is made more effective by our regional offices. This has certainly been the experience of our office in Brazil. It has been the case also of our African Regional Center in South Africa and the Eurasia Center in Moscow. They are soon to be followed, as it has been stated here, by the Indian Regional Office. When it comes to fundraising, I also wanted to report to you that we are making substantial progress. We have successfully tapped international markets to issue our inaugural USD bond last year, and we're gradually building our bond curve by making more benchmark issuances. The NDB enjoys today the highest credit rating assigned to any multilateral bank established solely by emerging economies. And as we go about doing those, we are committed to providing very competitive lending rates. Our lean organizational structure and efficient use of resources help us a great deal in achieving those goals. Now, let me tell you a little bit about our vision going forward. We essentially have 5 priorities going forward for this next 4 years. So one, yes, we want to make the NDB the premier development bank for emerging economies and play a leading role in the conversation on what development policy looks like going forward in the 21st century. This is an important set of tasks for the NDB, providing the ideas and the resources going forward for the development needs. The second priority that I wanted to highlight to you is that we are there committed to making progress with membership expansion, adding new members to the NDB family in a gradual and responsible way. We're increasing the complexity and outreach of our operations as the concept of infrastructure itself evolves more and more, both the traditional challenges and those that are presented, for example, by what's been called the fourth industrial revolution. As human talent rises as a key factor of production, the NDB must become a talent-intensive institution, one that is able to cope with the evolving challenges that lie ahead. And finally, of course, we want to strengthen our role as a platform for international cooperation, one where member countries come together and work constructively on issues of their shared interest. This conjunction of factors is really bringing the NDB to a very positive momentum, and I think one where the business sector will play more and more an increasing role, and we will be able to have, going forward, better and better opportunities to provide for the development needs of our member countries. So Mr. Kanwar and friends of the Brics Business Council, I thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Troyo, for your insightful remarks. It has been a pleasure to have you with us.
Thank you.
We would have loved to host you in person meeting and interact with you directly. I'm sure once this pandemic is over, we shall continue our physical meetings and meet you in person. On behalf of Brics Business Council, I would like to congratulate you and all your senior officials of NDB for the progress made so far. And your achievements are inspirational. We look forward to greater information exchange to further strengthen intra-Brics cooperation. NDB has indeed been a successful example of forging greater cooperation, which has only increased with every passing years. NDB has added immensely to the Brics grouping. The work plan highlighted by you is highly encouraging. We look forward to seeing expansions of non-sovereign portfolio of the bank. With physical and digital and social infrastructure development becoming a core focus areas of all Brics countries, we would be happy to see more of such key projects in Brics nations being financed by NDB. This is also in alignment with the need for sustainable development. We are also eagerly looking forward to the regional office of NDB in India. It will help us make better and more effective connects and strengthen the relationship even further. Once again, on behalf of the entire Brics Business Council, I thank you, Mr. Troyo, for joining this session. Thank you.
So good morning, good afternoon, and good evening. We will begin the next session, which is the plenary session with Brics Business Council National Chapter Chairs in 10 minutes from now. So thank you and look forward to meeting you in 10 minutes from now.
Good morning, good evening, good afternoon. Let me once again welcome my dear old friend, Mr. Sergey Katrin. We joined it together long back. I'm very happy to see you again. Captain Shi Lidong, Miss Busi Mubaza, and Jackson, Miss Schneider. Like to welcome you all. Good to see you and hope to see you soon in person. So with this, I would like to start the welcome address. It's my pleasure to welcome you all to the plenary session of the Brics Business Forum. This offers us an excellent platform to engage in a meaningful dialogue for furthering economic cooperation. Ever since formation of Brics, the group has evolved as a powerful, credible economic bloc. Brics countries represent new realities of the world today. It is our collective responsibilities to ensure sustained growth and development of this grouping. The pandemic took a toll on our economies. Eventually, we'll win the battle against this pandemic, but we cannot bring back the lives we lost. Today, we are facing a pandemic caused by virus. Tomorrow, it could be some other disaster related to climate change. Our economies need to be rebuilt and strengthened to prevent occurrence of any crisis in future. It is in this context, intra-Brics economic cooperation assumes even greater significance. Together, we can build on our competitive strength to enhance domestic growth as well as provide momentum to the global growth. Our respective governments have been working in this direction. The issue has been discussed at the meeting of the trade and industry ministers. It has also been taken up at the Brics Business Council and Brics Women Business Alliance. The focus on sustainable development is now a priority for all the countries. The 2030 Agenda for Sustainable Development set by world leaders have been designed to address the global challenges we face today. International cooperation can reap success only when we join our hands and work together the achievement of sustainable development goals, which is why the theme of this year Brics Business Forum is strengthening Brics Business Connect for sustainable growth and development. It is my firm belief that as businesses, we must make sustainable development a priority in our objective and vision. Last 2 days, we had the opportunity to hear several business leaders and experts. All such sessions were insightful. They laid out a pragmatic roadmap for strengthening partnerships by offering policy suggestions and interesting collaboration ideas. The session on digital technologies showcased various ways of which digital application can lead to a better governance and facilitate higher growth. Many of our sustainable development goals can be aided through digital solutions. This is one area that has been rapid growth during the pandemic. We must continue to build on momentum. As the Brics summit last year, Prime Minister Narendra Modi had alluded to boosting Brics collaboration in post-COVID economy, especially in the healthcare and digital health. This was a key subject of discussion at the Brics Business Forum, emphasizing the role of private sector in bridging the healthcare gaps. Experts identified areas of cooperation among our pharmaceuticals and healthcare businesses. As we fight the current pandemic through vaccine, medicine, strengthen health infrastructure, new technologies and solutions will be extremely important. Brics business cooperation in healthcare, including pharmaceuticals research, can be equally extremely useful in preventing other critical diseases in our countries. Role of the businesses in closing the gender gap is equally important. With 1 year into inception, the Brics Women's Business Alliance is now set to play an important role in furthering women empowerment through several on-ground initiatives. I compliment them for what they have achieved in a short span of time. Another important session at the forum was the role of financial sector in meeting the Sustainable Development Goals. Investment in SDG solutions need significant capital, be it in the area of energy, water, education, healthcare, infrastructure, or public utilities. We need massive amount of capital. A financial sector should support new innovative funding mechanism driven by ESG metrics. Green financing is the future. Session on infrastructure was equally insightful. Multiplier effects of large infrastructure development projects can help countries revive fast. We heard experts share some of the key development initiatives in their respective countries. They also shared specific suggestions for enhancing Brics cooperation in infrastructure, especially for the better logistics connectivity, which is a key dimension for enhancing trade and investment. We also heard NDB president in the previous session. He highlighted NDB's work plan in financing some of the critical sustainable development projects in the Brics countries. We should continue to explore the potential areas of collaboration with multilateral financial institutions like NDB and leverage their capabilities to fund sustainable development projects in the private sector. This year, a key suggestion of the Brics Business Council has been to set up an NDB Clean Energy Fund, and we look forward to discussing the subject with NDB going ahead. Friends, another key element in the post-pandemic strategy for strengthening Brics cooperation is trade. Historically, global trade has enhanced economic prosperity and facilitated power elevation. As Brics economies tread the path of recovery, trade shall remain the centerpiece. Effort must continue to lower the cost of cross-border trade, reducing barriers to trade, as well as promoting ease of doing business. Emphasis on promoting intra-Brics trade among Brics countries is reflected in the ministerial joint statements and Brics summit declaration over the years. This year, Brics Business Council organized a virtual trade fair to bring together business houses, entrepreneurs, and other relevant players on a common digital platform and to provide thrust to intra-Brics economic engagements. The digital technology has been leveraged optimally to continue business engagement despite the challenges posed by the pandemic. These are some of the points I wanted to indicate. There's much more that Brics countries can achieve together as a group. And there is a lot that we can gain by entering into sustainable partnership. Thank you. Continuing with this session, I would like now to invite my fellow chairs from other Brics countries to share their remarks. May I request Mr. Jackson Schneider from Brazil. Mr. Schneider, I have a question for you. As you are aware, our theme this year has been around sustainable development. There has been an increasing interest in ESG investment as a global agenda due to its potential to promote shared socio-economic value, sustainable development, as well as financial inclusion. We know, however, that companies face different challenges in incorporating ESG, such as the sector and the region where they operate. Given this, how the Brazilian companies adapting to this new reality? A related question is about the new development bank. Considering the NDB was established to foster sustainable development effort in Brics countries, how could it support companies to implement their ECG commitment? Yes, Mr. Schneider.
Thank you. Thank you, my dear friend, Onkar Kanwar, President of the Indian section of the Brics Business Council, and dear colleagues, Sergei, Catherine, Chu, Lilion, and Buzi Mabuza. It's a great pleasure to be with you for another edition of the Brics Business Forum. We all hope, I think that I can mention it on behalf of all my colleagues, that we miss each other, and we hope that in the next session we can meet in person. But despite of it, and before I begin, I would like to thank and congratulate the Indian chapter for organizing this important event and to extend my regards to everyone watching us. I hope you are well and healthy. There is a strong international trend towards the implementation of environment, social, and governance practices by companies, which has been boosted the last year by the pandemic and adverse weather events that have damaged several continents. As a result, such practices started to be considered not only by investors, but also by consumers and by all stakeholders in the production chain. While transparency and sustainability are admittedly relevant to encourage innovation and competitiveness, the social agenda, with its impact on local communities, is increasingly becoming more visible. In Brazil, there is a great awareness regarding environmental, social, and governance practice. Companies are mobilized to adopt bold public commitments, meeting this new market demand and positioning themselves in a more competitive way. We have noticed an increase in the number of companies seeking ESG certification in Brazil, and according to Bank of America, in the first quarter of 2021, Brazil issued 79% of the total green bonds and sustainability-linked bonds raised in Latin America, which also demonstrates the engagement with this agenda. Another evidence of this engagement are the 39 Brazilian companies listed in the best for the world ranking, which recognize companies with good ESG practice and that offer, in addition to financial return, positive impacts for society and environment. I would also like to point out that according to United Nations Global Compact Network Brazil, the initiatives must adopted by Brazilian companies regarding the subject are compliance, waste management, emergency support to COVID-19, and actions to foster projects in local communities. Embraer, for instance, my company, recognize the urgency of the climate crisis and are fully committed to a more sustainable future. To do so, we have included ESG as one of the pillars in our strategy plan Fit for Growth, aligning business strategy with social responsibility and environmental practice to achieve the aviation industry's goal of net zero carbon emissions by 2050. Last week, we have also announced ambitious ESG targets, including a commitment to carbon neutral operations by 2040. To do so, we are dedicated to foster innovative solutions for a new range of products and services, to promote an ecosystem for the generation and dissemination of knowledge in local communities and attract local talent, to enhance the diversity and inclusion, committed to hiring 50% diversity hires for entry-level employees and increase representation of women in senior leadership to 20% by 2025. These are very bold targets, very ambitious ones, but we are all committed to reach them in the proper dates. Recognize the challenge for the implementation of the ESG agenda in Brazil, especially with micro and small-sized companies, but it's up to large companies to lead the process, replicating good practice in their supply chains. We should all be committed to building a sustainable future, and we are. Regarding, my friend, the second question, how the new development bank can contribute to this process of implementing ESG criteria, I believe that the bank's policies are 100% convergent with this agenda. We just heard here now, before our section, Marcos Trujillo, the president of the new development bank, portraying for us its policy, and I think that is absolutely aligned with what we expect for the NDB. The NDB has created a specific department to deal with ESG issues, in line with the bank's institutional mission to invest in infrastructure and sustainable development. The NDB already evaluates ESG criteria for its funding projects, but by creating a specific department for the subject, the bank shows internally to its members and clients that it prioritizes environmental, social, and governance practice. It's also important to point out that during the last Brics Summit, the development finance institutions of the 5 countries signed a declaration of principles for responsible finance. It includes a commitment to encourage the integrated assessments of economic, social, and environmental aspects for funding awarding, as well as the joint development of new products and services that support the transition to inclusive and sustainable economies. Thus, I conclude by reinforcing the relevance of ESG to the Brics business agenda. We have a great window of opportunity for the modernization of our industrial activities, and we must assume bold commitments to ensure the longevity of our business with responsibility.
Thank you, Mr. Schneider, for sharing your views around this important subject. It is extremely important that companies play an important role in contributing towards sustainable development. One of the ways is through investment in ESG areas. Despite the challenges in adopting ESG, it must be embraced, given the need for being socially responsible. The suggestions you have made for NDB's support to companies in implementing ESG commitment are interesting, and we must take it forward in our consultation with NDB. Thank you. Thank you once again, Mr. Schneider. I will request now my friend, Mr. Sergey Katrin. May I, sir, ask you 2 questions? Now, let me invite my friend Katrin to share his remarks. Mr. Katrin, my question to you is relates to current scenario. As we all have seen for the past year, with the COVID-19 pandemic outbreak, digitization, introduction of modern information technology have become particularly important. In the context of global digitization, all BRICS countries are paying special attention to the development of this area. This has raised several concerns relating to IT infrastructure development, data storage, transmission, and ensuring IT security, etc. In context of BRICS economic cooperation potential, what are the prospects of formation of a single digital space? What is your opinion? Needs to be done for fostering cooperation in information, communication technology, and IT industry inclusive development with the BRICS. I have another question for you, Mr. Katrin. My second question is on the BRICS Women's Business Alliance. The launch of the BRICS Women Business Alliance played a significant role in the development of business relations between our countries. Alliance officially started its work in the year of Russian presidency in BRICS, despite the fact only a year has been passed since first meeting. Our colleagues are already initiating, implementing large multilateral projects and are cooperating actively in the field of innovative development, healthcare, food and environment security, creative industries and tourism. This year, the Alliance also held the first BRICS Women Innovation Contest. I would hence like to ask you, how do you see further development of women entrepreneurship in the BRICS, and what impact it can have on the agenda of the trade and economic cooperation in the framework of association?
Спасибо. Уважаемый
Thank you.
Thank you, Господин. Thank you, Mr. Kanwar, Господин Schneider, Господин Shushilum. I'm glad to welcome everyone at the plenary session of the Brics Business Forum. The situation does not yet allow us to meet physically so that we can summarize our work. I would first of all like to thank Mr. Kanwar for excellent organization of the Business Forum and organizing the work of Brics Business Council in Germany. In terms of pandemic situation of COVID-19 this year still remains challenging. Nonetheless, I would like to note that during the pandemic, there has been a great shift in our ability to find solutions to the difficult issues in organizing trade and economic cooperation in such difficult conditions. Today, we can see a recovery in the pace of economic development, in particular in January to June 2021, Russian trade with Brics countries increased by 29% compared to the last rate and increased by $70.6 billion. That means we are successfully overcoming the difficulties of natural recession of last year. Pandemic accelerated the process that had emerged long before it and forced us in the shortest possible time to find solutions to problems that would have taken years in a normal situation. First of all, we are talking about digitalization of our lives. In the Brics countries, the development of digitalization is one of the priority, which is determined by the national plans and strategies implemented over the past few years. In this way, we clearly see the areas of collaboration. First of all, it is the exchange of experiences at all levels on such aspects of regulatory framework as standardization, as personnel, education, information security, increasing export and import volumes in relation to digital services. Secondly, establishing a common digital standard. The Brics countries are the largest producers and consumers of digital products and services. The development of common standards of digital products will strengthen the position of Brics in the international arena, as well as become an effective measure for the further development of our businesses. Today, global digital platform knows more about the world's population than citizens are willing to tell them. In this regard, it is very important to develop a unified position in the field of cybersecurity and protection of personal data of citizens. Given the number of residents of the Brics countries, we need to develop common approaches to this issue, accelerating the process of mutual recognition of electronic documents. The development of an interstate electronic exchange of documents for entrepreneurs is what business is expecting today. Even the mutual recognition of an electronic digital signature on the scale of the Brics countries will have a tremendous effect and save billions in the medium term. Business also needs tools to build mutual trust. In this regard, it's already possible to implement open interstate services for checking counterparties for entrepreneurs of our countries. Another issue that is linked to digitization and which requires interaction at the interstate level is the development of digital platforms and ecosystems, establishment of uniform rules for e-commerce and the movement of goods, the creation of conditions for the inclusive development of this industry within the framework of the associations. It is already clear that the future lies in the growth of digital markets and ecosystems as they work outside the borders of states. The protection of the interests of consumers, suppliers is becoming increasingly important. We believe that in this context, it's necessary to develop common requirements of global players. And here, by joining forces within the Brics framework, we will be able to more effectively solve emerging issues and respond to new challenges. This will allow us to build an effective mechanism of interaction between IT business, and it will contribute to the implementation of joint projects, which in turn will create a huge synergy for the economies of our countries.
Thank you, Mr. Catherine. We complete.
Нет, еще одну минуту. За период пандемии появилось очень много самых разных полезных IT.
Around the pandemic period, we have had a number of interesting issues which will help in the furthering the technology and in post-COVID atmosphere. In fact, during the pandemic, there have been a lot of these different useful IT solutions. The development of promising areas such cooperation as unmanned taxis, transportation of goods by drones to remote areas, support of technology for telemedicine, big data processing, and many others will depend on digitization. I think that the issues of harmonization of legislation in the field of regulation of digital technologies will be one of the main areas of work in the context of creating conditions for realization of huge potential of trade. If we were to talk about the role of industries, we know that digital technologies undoubtedly are the key to the successful development of trade and economic cooperation. It has only 1 year has passed from the time we have created this entrepreneurship for women. A significant aspect is the fact that most of the projects of socially oriented business are implemented by women. You have a very rightly noted that only a year has passed, and Women's Business Alliance and our colleagues have already built a clear organization structure. But they have other things to do. And first of all, it is the creation of the unified information and partnership platform of Brics Women's Business Alliance. It is assumed that this platform will allow access to the database of the entrepreneurs from the countries of the 5 countries, as well as their products. Recommendations of the working group of the Alliance and other summary information on their initiative will be posted here. The platform will also provide access to information and educational content. We believe that this platform can become the basis for establishing partnership between women entrepreneurs. In addition, cooperation was launched in such areas as natural farming and organic farming, and it has enhanced. When we look in the future of development of this alliance, we can undoubtedly see that it will significantly strengthen the agenda of business cooperation in the Brics, seriously complement the work of both Business Council and Brics Association as a whole. I thank you for your attention.
Thank you, Mr. Catherine. We completely agree with your views and suggestions on fostering cooperation in the information and communication technologies with Brics. There is huge potential for expanding our cooperation in this area. I also agree with you on the important role of Brics Women Business Alliance in our businesses cooperation. In a very span of short time, the members of Brics Women Business Association have done a great job. I compliment them for their efforts, and as Brics Business Council. We look forward to collaborate with them on some of their ideas and proposals. Thank you once again. Can I go to the next question? Now I'll request Captain Shu Li Rong, my old friend. May I invite you now? My question is once again on the subject of sustainable development. As we know, the theme of this year's business forum is strengthening Brics Business Connect for sustainable growth and development. China has been actively responding to United Nations initiative, insisting on taking the path of sustainable development. In September 2020, Chinese President Xi Jinping said China aims to have carbon dioxide emission peak before 2030 and achieve carbon neutrality before 2060, which is called dual carbon goals. As the Chinese chairman of Brics Business Council, could you please introduce the beneficial practices of Chinese companies in advancing the dual carbon goals? And secondly, how should the business community of the Brics countries strengthen cooperation in low carbon environmental protection and jointly promote sustainable development?
谢谢康沃主席。
Thank you, Honorable Mr. Onkar Kanwar. I'm extremely happy to be a part of this forum. It's my great pleasure. And as the chairman of the Chinese chapter of the Brics Business Council, I'm extremely honored to attend today's plenary session of the Brics Business Forum. And I'm also extremely happy to share some of my views with you on China's twin targets concerning emission reduction as well as the related practices to this. So therefore, to begin with, let me briefly introduce the efforts made by China to achieve the peak carbon emission and carbon neutrality. China is an important contributor to the Paris Agreement on climate change and also an active practitioner of the Paris Agreement. In September 2020, Chinese President Xi Jinping announced that China would increase its national determined contribution and adopt a stronger policy and other measures to reach peak carbon emissions by 2030 and also strive to achieve carbon neutrality by 2060. China's carbon emissions come from 5 major sectors, which includes energy, industry, transportation, construction, agriculture, and land use. Adhering to the concept of ecological conservation and green low-carbon circular development, China has implemented a series of policy measures to optimal industrial structure and to build a low-carbon energy system, develop green buildings and low-carbon transportation, and also establish a national carbon emission permit trading market through technological and institutional innovation methods. Therefore, all these efforts are actually made to ensure that it will achieve the targets of peak emission and carbon neutrality. On the energy side, China is vigorously developing renewable and clean energy sources. In addition to the photovoltaic power, wind power, hydropower, and nuclear power, China is also actively carrying out research and application of green energy sources such as hydrogen, ammonia, and methanol. In the industry sector, therefore, China has eliminated a large amount of inefficient production capacity. On the transportation front, China is actively promoting the use of clean energy. For instance, China's shipping industry has significantly improved the performance of ships in navigation and emission reduction by integrating new technologies with green development. From the year 2008 to 2020, it has realized a 21% reduction in carbon emission in the context of a 41% increase in the global freight turnover. Therefore, in terms of the construction sector, China has vigorously promoted and is promoting green buildings. In the terms of agriculture and land use, China is pushing forward the use of new energy sources such as wind, solar, and LNG in rural areas, and has further increased its forest cover. Over the past decade, China has registered the largest net increase in the forest cover in the world. I would like to share with you some of the important practices adopted by the Chinese business community in achieving peak emission and carbon neutrality. Within the framework of China's national policy, Chinese businesses are playing a crucial role in reducing carbon emissions and promoting a long-term sustainable development. They are also creating new market opportunities for companies to achieve sustainable development in the post-COVID era. For example, our Costco Shipping has optimized its fleet structure and developed targeted energy-saving solutions in order to improve the energy efficiency level of the ship operations. Meanwhile, at the same time, it has been actively studying the feasibility of low carbon and zero carbon energy alternatives such as LNG, hydrogen, methanol, ammonia, and lithium batteries to improve the green development level of the industrial and the logistics chains as well. China National Petroleum Corporation is also vigorously developing natural gas and offshore wind power, leveraging its advantages in technology and facilities in the field of oil and gas exploration and development. CNPC has massively carried out carbon capture, utilization, and storage project demonstrations. It has also participated in the construction of the carbon emission permits trading market and achieved net zero carbon emission of single ship LNG resources in the whole industrial chain. COFCO Corporation is helping to break the industrial dilemma of fuel ethanol, a clean and low carbon energy source, as a part of its contribution to the realization of peak emission and carbon neutrality. Through independent and integrated innovation, it has carried out cellulosic fuel ethanol technology, R&D, and reserves, and developed key sets of cellulosic fuel ethanol processes to promote the development of China's renewable biomass energy industry. Adhering to the concept of building a world-class green financial system, Industrial and Commercial Bank of China has been increasing its support to green industries, customers, and projects through the comprehensive use of products and services such as green loans, green bonds, industrial funds, green wealth management, and green leasing. Focusing on the three main businesses of advanced manufacturing and technical services, medicine and healthcare, and trade and engineering services, China General Technology Holding Company has been optimizing its business layout and structure, strengthening the innovation drive and striving to promote high quality development. Aiming at green, low carbon circular development, China United Network Communication Group is also continuously stepping up the green development of its communication network infrastructure using digital means to provide relevant services to customers and helping the industry take a further step forward towards green, low carbon, and high quality development. China National Machinery Industry Corporation has been pursuing low carbon emission, environmental protection, and green development in all aspects of its production and operation, technology, R&D, and design and construction activities by constantly promoting technology upgrading, developing low carbon industries, and making continuous efforts in green manufacturing, green engineering, green design, and green construction. China Railway Group also pays great attention to the energy conservation, emission reduction, and environmental protection, and has made positive progress in green development projects such as ecological restoration, Pond City, prefabricated construction, water, and environmental protection. The above sharing is only the practice of some of the Chinese companies. China is moving towards achieving the goal of carbon neutrality and carbon peaking within the joint efforts of all these parties mentioned and more, and including the Chinese business community. So therefore, I would like to make a few suggestions on the Brics business community's joint efforts to promote green and sustainable development. First, we can use the Brics Business Council as a platform to promote sustainable corporate development. In its annual reports for the past 2 years, the Brics Business Council has made a number of recommendations to help the Brics countries achieve sustainable development. And this year, it's also discussed in the proposal on Clean Energy Fund to the New Development Bank. Secondly, it's recommended that the business communities in the Brics countries strengthen the joint technological research, accelerate energy conservation and emission reduction to grasp the market opportunities for new energy to achieve sustainable development of the enterprises. The BRICS business community should take into account the business realities, aim at carbon neutral targets, pay attention to cutting-edge carbon reduction technologies and related products, and actively promote the sharing, exchange, and extension of green solutions and innovative technology. So I would like to once again thank Mr. Kanwar, and I would wish you all success. Thank you.
Thank you, Captain Shu Lidong. You have elaborated on one of the critical subjects of clean energy. Our leaders have laid special
Recording in
focus.
progress. Recording stopped.
Thank you, Captain Shu Lidong. You have elaborated on one of the critical subjects of clean energy. Our leaders have laid special focus in this area, and we as business community must support our governments in such initiatives. You have highlighted some of the important elements in strengthening the business cooperation, in addressing issue of environment sustainability. Thank you so much. Now, I would request Busi Mubaza. I would like to invite you and to share your views on BRICS cooperation. I have two specific questions to you. First, as we all know, we are deep into second year of deadly pandemic, which has disrupted global supply chain. The immense impact of uneven speed in rolling out vaccination program has adversely affected food security, agriculture market access, remain issues of deep concern, especially for developing nations. Could you please share with your observation of the pandemic impact on developing countries, especially Africa? What has been achieved by BRICS economic operators in their collaboration in the past year, and what more can be done to ensure greater market access for agriculture products to improve food security as well as agriculture trade? My second question to you relates to vaccination. Your President, His Excellency Cyril Ramaphosa, and our Prime Minister Shri Narendra Modi have been campaigning hard for vaccination, justice, and against what is known as vaccine nationalism or vaccine apartheid. I know you have personally sacrificed a part of your youth to fight apartheid in your country, including spending time in prison. President Joe Biden of America has since embraced this legitimate cause being championed by your president and my prime minister. With this in mind, I would like to ask you, what are your reflections on the progress or otherwise that has been made both in relaxing the intellectual property rules under the World Trade Organization and rich word gesture towards making Africa and the developing world have speedy access to the vaccine doses?
Thank you so much, Mr. Kanwar. Sanbonani, I greet you, Chairman, and my colleagues on the BRICS Business Council on behalf of the South Africa chapter. Congratulations, Mr. Chairman, to you and your colleagues in India on the celebration of your independence on the eve of the opening of the BRICS Business Forum and the BRICS Trade Fair. Greetings also to all our guests who are present on this virtual platform today. I'm delighted, Chairman, to see that we are all safe and still in good health, though I had hoped, of course, to see you in person across the table from you and Mr. Chenoy, the Secretary General of FICCI. Chairman, we have not been together in the same room since Mr. Schneider hosted us in 2019. Mr. Katrain last year extended an open invitation to us following our virtual summit, and I trust, Mr. Chairman, that you will do the same. In any case, I will show up in India and Russia together with the BRICS Women's Business Alliance. I look forward, Chair, to Captain Shu Lerong ensuring that we get to China in this next year. Before I answer the questions, Chair, I join my colleagues in congratulating you, FICCI, and the India chapter for such sterling leadership all throughout the year and in arranging this year's BRICS Trade Fair and the BRICS Business Forum. Chair, I not only visited the fair myself, but I also attended 2 sessions on Monday and later caught up with the 3rd. And yesterday, I had the pleasure of attending both sessions. The topics were totally relevant, and I was most impressed at the level of input and discourse. The moderators ensured deep and meaningful discussion around the critical themes, and such that there were lessons there for all of us. Congratulations, Chairperson. Now, coming back to your first question regarding the vital issue of market access in the agribusiness sector. In summary, Chair, South Africa and our colleagues in the continent are keen for improved market access of our high-value agricultural and food produce into the BRIC countries. The pandemic could have decimated our global food supply chains. Sub-Saharan Africa escaped catastrophic impact on the back of 2 factors. First of all, good fortune in the form of better rains last year and prompt public policy responses. But still, we're not out of the woods. When the pandemic hit our shores in March 2020, there were legitimate fears that agricultural production would be disrupted, that food security would grow, resulting in tens of millions more people falling into extreme poverty. This fear was expressed by many institutions, including the World Bank. It's important to contextualize this reasonable apprehension. Ours is a continent that is a net importer of agricultural and food products. At the same time, South Africa continues to produce numerous high-value agricultural products that we would like to see gain greater market access, especially into the BRIC markets. Due to the initial uncertainty of how coronavirus was transmitted, major food exporting and importing countries, including some of the partners here today, understandably decided to impose bans on various food products, including grain exports. South Africa also initially closed her ports. Production plants were closed in parts of the world, all at a time when the world was still reeling from the effects of trade wars. Widespread job losses resulted in the rise in food insecurity, especially during the harder lockdown in countries such as ours, such as Kenya, Nigeria, Ethiopia, you count them. The suspension of schooling in our country specifically during the harder lockdown phases resulted in the shutdown of feeding schemes that are run by religious institutions and schools, thus exacerbating the situation. The South African government thankfully responded with a massive targeted social grants program that averted humanitarian disaster of hunger and poverty. Most governments, Chair, have responded to the food scarcity challenge by increasing grain imports, as well as seeking new opportunities for local sourcing. The leadership changes at the World Trade Organization are also welcome, as they offer a fresh opportunity for further liberalization of agricultural trade. We should seize this moment, otherwise we may not be lucky if the pandemic endures beyond 2022. Chairman, if I may now turn to the question that centers around the vaccine nationalism. These were critical interventions led by His Excellency Prime Minister Modi and His Excellency President Ramaphosa in the interest of many neglected nations and peoples of the world. The current pandemic has sadly managed to isolate us, in some cases weakening human global solidarity and collaboration. It has fostered nationalism and protectionism, especially amongst the rich parts of the world, leaving behind huge numbers of peoples in the developing world. The pre-pandemic inequalities have, Chair, been worsened by the outbreak of this virus. Many rich countries are reported to be sitting on large stockpiles of vaccine dosages that are badly needed by poor and developing nations. In addition, most of the productive capacity for COVID-19 vaccines is based in these rich countries, where they could surely be able to ramp up to cope with any rising demand if and when it comes in those countries. The majority of the jabs administered to date are to the rich world's populations. Africa lags behind by far, with under 5% of our population reportedly vaccinated to date. I'm told, Chair, that progress has been minimal, I apologize, in securing a waiver at the World Trade Organization that would allow knowledge sharing with manufacturers of vaccines from developing countries. This is despite President Biden's positive posture earlier in the year. South Africa is now, thankfully, in an improved position insofar as supplies of vaccines are concerned, and government is working hard to make sure that we have the requisite uptake by joining hands with the private sector to make sure that vaccines are as widely available as possible. In the same breath, Chair, I mourn the fact that this is not the case for many of other parts in our beloved continent. We welcome, of course, the $600 million pledge by governments and of some developed nations and the World Bank to support our own pharmaceutical producer, Aspen, to produce the Johnson & Johnson vaccines for the rest of the continent. Looking ahead, Chair, and in summary, I'm optimistic that if we redouble our joint efforts to tackle these problems, we shall prevail despite the headwinds. The defining call by our political leaders for vaccine justice deserves our tangible support. Thank you so much, Chair.
Thank you, Ms. Mabuza, for sharing your views on the two subjects. There can be no doubt enhanced Brics cooperation is utmost critical during these challenging times. Together, we are a powerful grouping and can have significant influence at the global arena. We also need to strengthen our cooperation, enhancing intra-Brics trade, including for agriculture products. This is also more important in current times to ensure food security for all. I once again thank all my fellow chairs of the Brics Business Council for sharing their valuable perspective with our audience today from across the Brics country. Thank you. Friends, as we come close to the Brics Business Forum, let me thank all of you for extremely engaging discussion we have had in the last 3 days. All our speakers shared valuable insights. We delved into topics right from digital technologies to new age healthcare, to infrastructure, to meeting the sustainable development goals and financial sector role in that. Today's session with the President of New Development Bank also emphasized the importance of sustainability in business projects. Together, we must work together towards building a pipeline for private sector projects that maintain the focus on sustainability. We can then take it up with NDB for financial assistance. It is equally important to ensure that as business leaders, we incorporate sustainability in our business operations and also encourage other stakeholders to adopt sustainable business practices. As a part of the Brics Business Council, we all have agreed upon business cooperation towards achieving the sustainable development goals with a focus on greater inclusivity, inclusiveness and reduction in inequalities, and greater environmental sustainability. We were also happy to hear the views of the Brics Business Council chairs, who brought to fore the need for enhanced business cooperation, sustainable development, as well as to counter and minimize the disruption from the COVID-19 pandemic. Friends, business countries, Brics countries have several shared interests that bring them together. The most important of these is trade and investment. The Brics Trade Fair, supported by the Department of Commerce, Government of India, organized by the Federation of Indian Chamber of Commerce and Industry, on the sideline of Brics Business Forum, has been a successful initiative. Given the current pandemic situation and restriction on international travel, virtual formats of the trade fair has given an opportunity for enterprises in BRICS countries to do networking, explore avenues for new partnership and business deal. This should facilitate greater trade, investment among our countries. I would like to thank our authorities as well as the secretariats of BRICS Business Council in all 5 countries for making this event successful. It's a great step forward in furthering the trade interests of our economies. We look forward to more such engagement in the future. We're equally confident the BRICS government will continue their effort towards further policy reform to facilitate trade promotion. With these words, we come to the close of this event. Thank you all once again. I look forward to meeting my fellow BBC members at our annual general meeting at the end of this month. Thank you.